The council chamber was carved from living crystal, a dome so vast that voices seemed to echo for minutes. Light from the pulsar outside refracted through the transparent walls, scattering the delegates' faces in eerie hues. At the chamber's center, High Chancellor Vaylor rose, his insectal frame gleaming beneath ceremonial armor. His words cracked like a whip. By unanimous decree, humanity stands condemned. Your colonies are unlawful, your expansion reckless. War is declared. Dozens of alien representatives struck the floor with staffs and claws in approval. The verdict was not unexpected. Still, the weight of silence that followed was suffocating. They waited for the lone human in the chamber to kneel, beg, or at least tremble. Admiral Elias Rourke did none of those things. He leaned back in his chair, crossed his scarred arms, and let the pause stretch until it was unbearable. Then, with a voice steady enough to carry across the dome, he said, "Is that all?" A ripple of outrage tore through the chamber. The reptilian Keth hissed. The avian Sarakai beat their wings in protest. Even the mechanical XYRN emitted a grinding shriek. Vaylor's mandibles clicked in fury. "You dare mock this council?" "I dare remind it," Rourke replied, "that humanity has heard declarations before. Some of us still carry the scars of wars we didn't start. We've survived every one of them. You will not survive this," Vaylor snapped. "Our fleets outnumber yours 100 to 1. Your worlds will burn before your children reach adulthood." Rourke rose to his full height. He wasn't the tallest man, but he carried himself as though gravity itself bent around him. "Then you'd best bring more than words." The chamber descended into chaos. Accusations, threats, and derisive laughter echoed. Vaylor slammed his staff against the dais, silencing the uproar. His final words hung like a blade. "Within one cycle, humanity will be erased. Remember this day, Admiral. It is the day your species signed its own death warrant." Outside the chamber, Rourke moved quickly through glittering corridors, ignoring alien stares. His wristcom flickered as he transmitted a secure burst toward Earth. "Priority Omega, war declared. Immediate mobilization required." By the time his shuttle detached from the station and accelerated into the pulsar's shadow, the message had already reached Luna Command. The war room beneath Luna's surface was a bunker of steel and screens. Generals, scientists, and civilian leaders packed the chamber, their voices raised in heated argument. "They'll crush us in weeks," one senator shouted. "Our colonies are defenseless," cried another. "We must sue for peace." "Peace?" Rourke's voice cut through the noise as his hologram flickered into the room. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes were sharp. "They didn't declare war to negotiate. They declared war to erase us. There's no treaty waiting on the other side of this fight." Commander Jace Ortega, standing near the tactical displays, bristled. "Then what do we do, sir? Outnumbered, outgunned, outthought?" Rourke interrupted, almost smiling. "Not yet." A hush fell. Dr. Mara Levin, chief strategist, adjusted her glasses and spoke carefully. "If their fleets truly outnumber us 100 to 1, conventional defense is impossible. We'd need unconventional defense," Rourke finished for her. "They expect us to fight like they do, lines of battle, ship to ship, brute force. That's why they think they've already won." The room stirred. Ortega frowned. "And if we don't fight like them? Then we remind them why betting against humanity has a poor track record," Rourke said. Levin tapped a control, pulling up a hollow map of human space. "Our first target will be Helios Prime. It's a fringe colony, light defenses. If the Council wants to make an example, that's where they'll strike." "And if they take it?" asked a senator. "They won't," Rourke said, his tone final. "Not while I have ships to command." Hours later, as transports shuttled soldiers to orbit and colonies prepared for evacuation drills, Rourke stood alone in his quarters aboard the flagship Resolute. The stars outside were cold, indifferent. He ran a hand across an old scar on his jawline, a reminder of Earth's last war before the stars had opened. He remembered the screams, the fire, the stubborn refusal to yield. Humanity had always bled, always paid the highest cost, but they had never disappeared. Survival was the one thing they did better than anyone. The intercom chimed. Ortega's voice crackled through. Admiral, Council fleet confirmed on vector toward Helios Prime. Arrival in 72 hours. Rourke closed his eyes, letting the weight settle on his shoulders. Then he opened them again, sharp and steady. Order the fleet to rendezvous. Prepare the mines and decoys. And tell the colony governor we'll buy them time. Yes, sir. Anything else? Rourke allowed himself the faintest grin. Yeah. Remind our pilots, we don't fight fair. Word spread fast. Across colonies, families packed into evacuation vessels. Soldiers strapped into dropships, some hiding fear behind bravado, others silent in grim focus. News broadcasts screamed doom, yet beneath the fear, something else sparked, a stubborn pride. Humanity was used to being underestimated. At Luna Command, Dr. Levin worked tirelessly, feeding Rourke strategies and probabilities. None promised clean victory, but each offered survival. Every plan we make, they'll assume we'll execute logically, she told him. So we do the opposite. Predictability is death. Rourke chuckled. Unpredictability's the one resource we've got in surplus. Meanwhile, in the Council War Chamber, Vaylor presided over the fleet's mobilization. Hundreds of ships, gleaming with centuries of design perfection, assembled like a storm cloud ready to sweep Helios Prime from the map. They will crumble, Vaylor hissed to his aides. This war ends before it begins. Yet beneath the surface of his arrogance, a sliver of unease festered. Rourke's words in the chamber replayed in his mind, then you'd best bring more than words. Vaylor dismissed the thought. Humans were primitive, reckless, fragile. One decisive strike would silence them forever. Back aboard the Resolute, Rourke stood before his officers, the hollow map of Helios Prime glowing between them. The Council fleet icon pulsed like a predator's heartbeat. His officers waited, tense, uncertain. Rourke's voice was calm, measured. They think this will be over in hours. That will crumble on contact. They're wrong. We don't match their numbers. We don't match their firepower. What we do matches their arrogance, with imagination. He let the words sink in. Faces hardened. Doubts gave way to determination. Admiral, Ortega asked, what's the plan? Rourke allowed himself a thin, dangerous smile. We make Helios Prime the lesson they'll never forget. The Helios system was a quiet frontier before the war, just a pale sun, a single habitable world, and rings of scattered rock. Now, it was a killing ground. From the bridge of the Resolute, Admiral Rourke studied the incoming enemy formation. The Council fleet numbered nearly 200 warships, sleek Threx cruisers, Sarakai carriers, Keth destroyers bristling with plasma cannons. Their formation was perfect, a glittering wedge sliding toward the colony. Human icons on the tactical display looked pitiful in comparison, 35 ships, many retrofitted cargo haulers pressed into service. Ortega muttered, they'll bury us in minutes. Only if we let them, Rourke said. Signal all ships. Phase 1. Helios Prime's asteroid belt shimmered as hidden mines powered up. Some were little more than guided nuclear charges strapped to rocks. Others carried experimental warheads. From a distance, they were indistinguishable from ordinary stone. Dr. Levin's voice came over comms. Asteroid field density masking is holding. They don't see them yet. They will soon enough, Rourke replied. Across the void, the Council fleet commander, a Threx named Vorel, sneered as human ships scattered from orbit. Pathetic. They flee before we fired. His aide clicked mandibles in amusement. Permission to pursue? Granted. Burn them down. Leave the colony defenseless. The Council ships surged forward in precise formations, plasma cannons charging. Their sensors picked up erratic human movement, freighters darting into the belt, frigates veering unpredictably. Vorel dismissed it as panic. Then the first mine detonated. A blinding sphere of light erupted inside the Council's vanguard. 2 destroyers vanished in a storm of fire. Fragments slammed into nearby vessels, tearing through shields. Before the shock faded, another explosion followed. And another. Trap! Vorel roared. Evasive maneuvers! But the asteroid belt came alive. Mines detonated in chain reactions, turning the field into a storm of shrapnel. Human ships darted among the chaos, launching missiles and railgun slugs from impossible angles. On the Resolute, Ortega's grin was feral. They're choking on their own formation. Good, Rourke said coldly. Now make them bleed. Helios Prime's skies lit with the battle above. Civilians packed into bunkers and evacuation craft watched fiery streaks tear across the heavens. News feeds captured images of human frigates weaving through explosions, hammering Council warships many times their size. Dr. Levin's voice crackled on comms. They're unraveling faster than projected. Their command protocols can't adapt to the chaos. That's because they've never had to improvise, Rourke said. Keep pressing. A Sarakei carrier, massive and elegant, turned broadside to unleash drone swarms. Before the launch sequence completed, a human missile frigate, the Vigilant, broke cover from the belt. Its captain, refusing to retreat, charged straight at the carrier. On the bridge, Ortega shouted, "They'll be annihilated!" "No," Rourke said quietly. "Watch." The Vigilant's last salvo punched through the carrier's hangar bays. A heartbeat later, the frigate detonated its own reactor. The explosion ripped through the Sarakei vessel, tearing it in half. For a moment, the battlefield fell silent. Humanity had just gutted a ship 10 times larger, at the cost of one. Cheers erupted across human comm channels. Ortega slammed his fist against the console. "That's how we fight!" Rourke didn't cheer. His eyes stayed on the tactical map, where human icons were blinking out. Every victory came with blood. In the council chamber, Vaylor watched the live feeds in disbelief. He had promised an easy victory. Instead, the fleet was floundering. "How?" demanded a delegate. "How are primitives resisting this?" "They won't hold long," Vaylor insisted, though his claws dug furrows into the dais. "This is desperation. Nothing more." But unease whispered through the chamber. The images on screen told another story, not desperation, but defiance. Back at Helios, the battle raged into its second hour. Council numbers still dwarfed humanity's, but the arrogance of inevitability was gone. Vorel's fleet now fought cautiously, ships breaking formation, commanders bickering over how to counter tactics they had never faced. Human losses were brutal. Entire crews vanished in nuclear blossoms. Yet each sacrifice bought time, and each time purchased a wound on the enemy. On the Resolute, Ortega's hands trembled on the console. "We've lost the Spearhead, Harbinger, and 3 freighters. Sir, we can't take this much longer." "We weren't meant to," Rourke said. His tone carried no despair, only resolve. "Signal Phase 2. Begin withdrawal." The order spread. Surviving human ships disengaged, peeling back toward the far side of the asteroid belt. Council commanders, enraged, rallied their battered fleets to pursue. But Phase 2 wasn't simple retreat. As humans pulled back, more charges hidden in the belt ignited, collapsing asteroid paths behind them, forcing the Council into a labyrinth of fire and rock. The pursuit turned into a gauntlet, bleeding them with every step. Finally, as the last human vessel slipped into the shadow of Helios's moon, Rourke gave the command. "Disengage. Jump to fallback coordinates." Blue flashes marked their escape. Silence returned to Helios. The Council fleet hung in shattered formation, dozens of ships destroyed, many more crippled. Helios Prime still burned beneath them, but the world lived. The humans had not been annihilated. Vorel sat in his ruined flagship, trembling with rage. "Report casualties." The numbers were staggering. Losses were higher than any Threx campaign in centuries. He had underestimated the humans. And the galaxy was watching. On Luna Command, the news spread like wildfire. Against impossible odds, humanity had stood and struck. Cities erupted with cheers, even as casualty lists scrolled across screens. For the first time, fear gave way to pride. Dr. Levin summarized the battle to the Council of Leaders. "We lost half our fleet, but their losses were far greater than they anticipated. They cannot dismiss us as weak any longer." Rourke's hologram flickered into the chamber. His expression was grim, but his voice steady. "First blood is theirs. But the wound? That's ours to carve." That night, in the quiet of his quarters, Rourke poured a measure of whiskey into a steel cup. He raised it in silence to the names of the fallen. Ortega entered, face pale. "Sir, with losses like these, how do we win?" Rourke swirled the drink, eyes fixed on the stars outside. "We don't win by their rules. We win by surviving long enough to break them." Ortega nodded slowly, understanding dawning. Humans couldn't match the Council's strength. But unpredictability, that was a weapon no one could counter. Rourke finished the drink and set the cup down with a sharp click. "Tell the crews to rest. Tomorrow, we plan the counterstroke." Weeks passed since Helios. Across human space, grief mingled with pride. Every family knew someone who hadn't returned, yet their names were spoken with reverence. For the first time, humanity believed survival was possible. At Luna Command, Admiral Rourke stood before the assembled High Council, flanked by Dr. Mara Levin and Commander Ortega. Hollow maps flickered above the table, red Council fleets pushing ever deeper. "They'll regroup," Levin said. "Their next assault will target inner colonies. If we wait, we'll be smothered." "Then we don't wait," Rourke replied. He tapped the map, highlighting a web of unstable wormhole corridors. "Here. They avoid these routes because they're unpredictable. That makes them perfect for us." A senator objected, voice sharp with fear. "Those corridors collapse without warning. Sending ships through them is suicide." Rourke met his gaze. "So is waiting. We use the risk. We hit them where they think we can't reach, deep in their supply chain. Starve their fleets, fracture their unity, and force them to see us as more than prey." Levin leaned forward. "If this works, we won't win the war outright. But we'll shatter their certainty. That's what terrifies them." Silence followed. Then Ortega spoke, eyes alight with fire. "When do we start?" 2 weeks later, the strike fleet launched. Only a fraction of the original armada remained, scarred frigates, patched destroyers, crews exhausted but hungry for payback. Inside the wormhole corridor, the universe twisted. Hulls groaned as space-time bent. Pilots clenched teeth, praying navigation held. Rourke's voice echoed over comms. "Fear is the Council's weapon. Today it's ours. Hold steady." One by one, the ships emerged into the unguarded rear of Council space. Before them hung the Goran supply hub, a sprawling nexus of docks, fuel stations, and warehouses. No warships stood watch. The Council had believed it untouchable. "Targets confirmed," Ortega reported, almost grinning. "Sir, they have no idea we're here." "Then let's introduce ourselves," Rourke said. The attack was surgical. Human frigates darted between stations, disabling reactors, cutting fuel lines, setting fire to docks. Explosions rippled across the hub as alarms wailed. Council merchants scrambled in disbelief. Broadcasts went live almost immediately, feeds of human ships tearing through the core of Council territory. Rourke had ordered it. Every alien world would see that the war wasn't one-sided. "Transmission loop is active," Levin confirmed. "They're watching." "Good," Rourke said. "Let them." High Chancellor Vaylor stood frozen in his war chamber as the feeds poured in. Flames consumed the hub. Human voices mocked through open comms. "You declared war. We declared survival." The chamber filled with shouts. "Impossible! Their fleet was broken. This is propaganda." But the images were undeniable. Vaylor's grip on power trembled. He slammed a claw against the dais. "End this! Mobilize every ship! Crush them now!" Yet doubts spread among the delegates. If humans could strike here, what else could they do? Meanwhile, the raid pressed deeper. Ortega's squadron severed a line of cargo haulers, sending them spinning into each other in fiery collisions. Levin directed cyber teams to hijack Council broadcasts, replaying footage of Helios and the hub in loops across alien networks. "Admiral," Ortega said, his tone shifting as enemy reinforcements appeared on sensors. "Heavy ships inbound. If we stay, we'll be surrounded." "That was always the plan," Rourke answered. "We came to make a point, not plant a flag." "Signal withdrawal." The fleet scattered, diving back into the unstable wormhole. Behind them, the supply hub burned, a wound the Council could not ignore. Back aboard the Resolute, Ortega slumped into his chair, adrenaline still surging. "That's going to shake them." Levin smiled faintly. "More than shake. We've exposed the lie they built their power on, that resistance is futile. Now every species in the Council knows it's not." Rourke said nothing for a long moment, watching the wormhole's distortion fade. His mind weighed every loss against every gain. Humanity had survived Helios, and now struck the heart of the Council itself. The war was far from over, but something had shifted. Days later, the Council convened in uproar. Delegates shouted accusations, blaming Threk's arrogance, Sarakai pride, or Vaylor's rashness. Fear trickled through the chamber. Vaylor tried to project control, but his voice cracked. "They are nothing! Their tricks cannot save them!" Yet the chamber no longer roared in agreement. Quiet murmurs spread instead. "If they can reach our hubs, if they can survive the Council's might." On Earth, celebrations erupted. Cities lit with banners. Colonists sang the names of the fallen. For the first time, the word victory wasn't fantasy. At Luna Command, Rourke addressed the fleet. His voice carried through every ship, every bunker, every home tuned to the broadcast. "The Council thought we'd bow. They thought we'd break. Instead, we showed them what happens when humanity is pushed. We're not fighting to conquer, we're fighting to live. And when survival is at stake, there is nothing stronger than us." The cheers that followed echoed through space. Later, in the quiet of the Resolute's observation deck, Ortega stood beside him. "We've lit the fire, Admiral. But the Council won't forget this. They'll come harder." Rourke nodded. "Good. The harder they come, the more cracks they'll show. This isn't about matching them ship for ship. It's about teaching them that war with humanity is a mistake they'll regret forever." Levin joined them, eyes on the stars. "You've given us time. Time to adapt, to build, to remind the galaxy why underestimating us is dangerous." Rourke allowed himself a rare smile. "They wanted surrender. Instead, they taught us war. Their mistake."